exciting stories for today, and we'll be starting with the question whether African films are about Africa. And also, Stephen Chow has followed up to his film, which was released in 2001, that is Soccer Shaolin, with another great spin off, which is making a hit currently at the box office. We'll be talking about these two stories right here on the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu, and delving into the very first story. We are asking ourselves the question as to whether African films are about Africa. And this actually stemmed from an article I read about 2 weeks ago or about a week ago when the America was celebrating its 250th anniversary, where an article published in the Variety asked the question whether Hollywood movies are about Hollywood. And I felt that this um, the article actually delved into the kind of stories that we would want to reflect on as whether as filmmakers or storytellers in general. And it did really highlight some important things that made me reflect to ask myself this question and see if we can deliberate on such concern in Ghana. And the summary of the article is that yes, there are films that spoke about how America in general had movies in the past, particularly the classical eras, where films like, you know, he mentioned films like The Godfather, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and Dirty Harry are all films that spoke about an aspect of America. And I felt that that was quite an interesting insight as to this article. As a matter of fact, this article was picked off from another article that was published in the New York Times, and the title for that article was "What is the definitive movie about America?" So I thought I would do same here, where I reflect on whether African films or Ghanaian films or wherever you find yourself on this continent, whether your country's films talk about your country or generally do African films talk about Africa. But before we go there, one of the things I realized that uh, in time past, perhaps over 20, 30, 40 years ago, you had American films that made us believe so much in America that we so much wanted, either individuals so much wanted to be like Americans or even speak like them or go there because of how well they sold America to the world. It was so exciting. It was so fun to watch how America was perceived on the silver screen. And that alone is indicative of how in time past they really sold America to the world, and it worked so well. And that is a clear indication that the power of films can indeed sell a nation or an ideal of a nation to a people who may not even know, I mean, relate to the country and accept it as it is. So I thought this indeed is a powerful, um, thought provoking discussion that we can have on this subject matter. So in my research, I realized that a lot of African films actually do speak about Africa. I think with time, we realized how it is so necessary that whatever stories we tell are our own stories by ourselves, and unadulterated in its form, so that it impacts us positively. And one of such movies, which is seen to be one of the definitive movie that talks about Africa, is the film Heritage Africa. And Heritage Africa is such an amazing film directed by Kwaw Ansah, one of Ghana's, ace veteran filmmaker, there in your short. And Heritage Africa is such a powerful story that talks about the uh, I would say pre-post colonial era, just around the time, the 1950s, where a certain gentleman who wanted to win the favor of the overlords or the colonial masters, even went to the extent of altering his name so as to fit the perfect brand of his masters. And so names that locally would sounded quite similar to that of the foreign name. He adapted the foreign version of the name, or altered his name to make it sound English. And not just that, but he sort of abandoned his traditions and all that. And this story, in essence, actually speaks of how in time past, for those who may not be aware, if you lived in Ghana or certain parts of Africa, I'm sure maybe we may have similar stories where people weren't even confident about their own selves, but would rather prefer to, adopt a certain culture that is quite different from what their origins are supposed to be. So, this film in particular, starring the legendary and he's going to be with the Lord, Kofi Bokna, may he so rest in peace, spoke about the the issue that plagued a lot of Africans at certain point in time. I wouldn't say all Africans, but for some Africans who believe their culture was a little bit inferior to that of, or was inferior to that of the Western world or any other culture. So this particular story drums home the necessity of realizing that being an African is something that you should be proud of without, looking down upon yourself. And such a film, after watching it, you begin to understand why you need to go back and acculturate go back to who you really are rather than, adopting one's culture for yourself. I mean, we live in a free world and we can choose whatever we want to do. But this film actually turns the lens on ourselves to actually remain humble and accept who we are. And it's such a beautiful piece. If you haven't watched it and you get the opportunity, you should do so, because it indeed highlights certain things that we may easily gloss over or overlook and think it is civilization or modernity and a whole lot. But this film actually indeed is a powerful it's a powerful story that makes you think after having watched it, and you reflect on why there is the need for you to accept your culture, your roots, and live it fully. Just a little synopsis of this 1989 film. This is what it says, that um, just a brief. It says that this is the cornerstone, directed by Kwaw Ansah. It's one of the most politically and culturally reflective films in Ghana's cinematic history. The film follows Kwesi Atta Busumfi. So Kwesi Atta Busumfi actually, so the name Kwesi is the name given to a Sunday born, that is a male Sunday born, and then Atta is that of a twin, and then Busumfi is the family name given to the character in this particular instance. So this very name, he changed it into the name Quincy. That's Kwesi for Quincy, Ata for Arthur, and then Busumfi for Busumfield. So that is quite a word play done there by the Kwaw Ansah, the director, who also happens to be the writer of this film. Let me just finish the synopsis. So the film follows Kwesi Atta Busumfi, a public servant during the colonial period, who rises through the ranks by adopting the ways of his colonial masters, even changing his name to Quincy Arthur Busumfield. Set against the backdrop of the anti-colonial movement of the late 1950s, it explores themes of identity, colonial influence, and African self-awareness. So just as I said before, it challenged audiences to rethink cultural pride and the lingering effects of colonial mentality and in international recognition. So that is quite a very, a powerful film at that. So this film indeed is quite timeless in not just in terms of the story that was told, but the quality of the execution of the production. You know, the production value is really high out there. Obviously, in terms of technology, it might not meet up to the standards that we have now because time has passed and perhaps there weren't the availability of such technology that could make it as crisp and worthy of the times we find ourselves in. So there is a short a screen grab of a scene in the film, and let me see. There's another angle that showcases the two characters. Yeah, so there you have Kofi Bokna as Kwesi Arthur Busenfield. Let me see if I can take off my yeah yeah. So this indeed is one of many African stories that really focuses inward and talks about Africa and sort of highlights on the values of who we are as an African or who we are as a people. And not this film is not just I mean it's just one of the several that make that sort of makes us aware of who we ought to be and accept how beautiful we are as a people. So let me just go further and read some of the African films that have gone a long way to impact, the continent and recognized by the world as such. So we have other films, perhaps Ghanaian films. We have "I Told You So," which was shot in the 1970 was shot in 1970, and it talks about it's one of the pioneering works in Ghanaian cinema, blending humor with moral storytelling. It reflected everyday social issues while delivering lessons about relationships, trust, and consequences. Let me just go through the rest. We have Love Brewed in the African Pot, shot in 1981. Kukuran Tumi, Road to Accra, 1983. Matters of the Heart, 1993. A Country Called Ghana, which is quite recent. And also, we have The Fisherman, which is also quite recent. And I happen to be a part of the production team that shot it as well. And the story is such a wonderful story. If you get opportunity, watch it. But there are also other African films that you know, holds this stance concerning telling story about Africa. We have one like the Black Girl, shot in 1966 in Senegal by directed by Ousmane Sembène, one of Africa's finest, if perhaps not the very finest. Um, such an amazing director. We also have Sankofa, shot in 1993 in Ethiopia and USA. Funny enough, Sankofa is actually a Ghanaian account term, which means to go back for the traditions that perhaps you've abandoned or lost. We go on to films like Tuki Buki in 1973, Senegal, directed by Jibril Diop Manbeti. We go on to Dahomey, which was shot in 2024, Senegal, France production. Félicité in 2017, another Senegal French production. Atlantics 2019, Senegal. Timbuktu 2014, Mali. The Burial of Kojo 2018, directed by Blitz Bazawule, a Ghanaian based in America, and also The Eyes of Ghana, which happens to be a documentary that talks about the first-hand accounts by Ghana's, premier, that is Kwame Nkrumah's personal cinematographer, and that is Reverend Chris Hesse. That is a wonderful production that everybody should watch if you want to know more about Ghana's political history and how powerful cinematography or film can sort of chronicle all the events that we perhaps may not have deep insight to, but the camera can indeed states the truth as it is. So it is indeed such a powerful question to ask, particularly by all industry stakeholders, as to whether the films that are being told now in the 21st century indeed talks about us. I mean, their people, the country of origin of that industry. And I think this subject matter is quite a powerful topic. As soon as I saw the and I read the entire article, I thought it wise to discuss it, and indeed, it's quite an amazing journey of discovering films upon films that spoke more about Africa than I ever thought of. So let me know what you think, particular if you are from any other country apart from Ghana, any part from the world. Let me know in the comments section below as to whether your country's films talk about your own, your where you are from, and what are some of the topical or subject matters discussed in these films. Leave them in the comment section below, and it will be deeply appreciated. So, moving on from this story, now go to another classic where, for all those who like Chinese films, you know that one of the name that is very prominent in the Chinese film industry, particularly one that has been able to establish himself as a perhaps one of the popcorn hits, in terms of films, is none other than Stephen Chow or Stephen Chow, whichever way you pronounce it or you see it first to pronounce, and that is him in Your Shot. And he's brought us such amazing films. Let me see if I can bring up some of the images. Films like Kung Fu Hustle. Yeah, so he brought us films like Kung Fu. I'm trying to, yeah. So he brought us films like I want to bring up. Okay, so he brought us films like Shaolin Soccer, which was a classic hit over 25. I mean, that is 25 years ago, and now has gone on to bring us another classic. But before then, for those who perhaps may not even know Shaolin Soccer, I'm sure you might have seen excerpts of even another film of his, and that film is Kung Fu um, Hustle. Let me see whether I can get the poster to display on the screen. Yeah, so there you have it in your short Kung Fu Hustle, and it is a film that you would have to suspend your belief because it is very similar to your Saturday cartoons that you watch, where human beings are running like Bugs Bunny and Coyote, and it is quite interesting to watch that film. If you have the opportunity, you should do so. But one of the classic hits that most people know, it's not Kung Fu Hustle, but actually Shaolin Soccer. And Shaolin Soccer showed how a group of people got into the world of football or soccer, and not they don't just play the regular football we know as we can see in the World Cup, but display their martial arts skills whilst playing the football. And it's actually it's not just a game of sports; it's actually a lethal game of fighting each other, and it's quite exciting to watch. Now, for several years, he's been hinting or wanting to do a spin-off of this particular film, that is Shaolin Soccer, which Shaolin in itself is a martial art. And the spin-off is none other than Kung Fu uh, Soccer. And true to his word, he has actually gone on to do that and has given such a classic, which I mean has given such a film for us all to watch, and that alone is indicative of his commitment in making that happen. So let me just display the poster as yeah, for the Shaolin Soccer. Sorry, for the Kung Fu Soccer. It's already a hit where now So it's already a hit where now it's garnered about 79 million already. So it is indeed an amazing display of one's capability. I'm not able to pull up the poster at the moment, but let me just go straight to the article and then see what success he has achieved already. So, in the Hollywood Reporter, it says that Stephen Chow's Kung Fu Soccer kicks off with mighty $74 million two-day debut at China box office. And so this is just from the China box office alone. The Shaolin Soccer spin-off, Stephen Chow's first film as director in 7 years, is projected to earn more than $350 million in its home market, with plans for a US release still in the works. And it goes on to say that Stephen Chow is officially back. Kung Fu Soccer, the comedy legend's long awaited Shaolin Soccer spin off, and his first film as director in 7 years, dominated China's box office with a mighty $73.6 million all over the weekend, according to data from Artisan Gateway. The two-day tally accounted for nearly three-quarters of all ticket sales in the world's second largest movie market and nine times the takings of its nearest competitor. This shows how powerful of a filmmaker that Stephen Chow is, and definitely with the nostalgia of the very, if you have to take the Shaolin Soccer as the first in the installations of series, then this is the second. I mean, that particular film was very entertaining. Almost all his films are so entertaining, which has a blend of the martial arts displays together with comedy, and that you know that when Stephen Chow produces a film of that nature, you're going to have a balance of these two. And so that indeed is what he did, and it became a phenomenal hit back then. So seeing that this is a follow up to that, audiences expected nothing less than that. But for this particular one, it is indeed an all female soccer team. And for this film itself, he never starred in it. He actually wasn't a part of the cast, only stayed behind the scene to direct it as seen. So let me quickly read a brief synopsis on what this story is about. So this is a spin-off of the 2001 called classic soccer, Shaolin Soccer, following an all-female soccer squad who add martial arts techniques to their game during a major tournament. So that is what the whole story is about. And it's already gone on to make $74 million in mainland China. So there are currently deals being made to ensure that it is distributed in international territories for people to be entertained in the cinemas by this wonderful director's film. So that is indeed a win already to have made $74 million. As to whether it's recouped his budget money, that I cannot tell. But the projections seems good if truly it's able to live up to it. It materializes. Then it means that not only is it going to make his money back, if China alone is able to generate $350 million for this film alone, coupled with what would might happen in the international market, potentially one and a half more or 150% more of what will happen in China, or perhaps double 200%, then definitely they are going to make their money back with some handsome profit on the film as well. So for those who may not know Stephen Chow has quite a roster of films that are very entertaining and ages like fine wine. If you watch Kung Fu Hustle, even before the age of AI and everything, he was able to achieve certain effects in his films that ordinarily most people couldn't achieve, or maybe that wasn't their prerogative or their focus. So they didn't focus, they didn't do that in their films. but he did it so excellently well that it's aged so well. You indeed will see no wrong with the effects, the VFX and CGI they did for that film. So indeed, it is awesome to see that a film of that nature is being displayed and in the cinemas at the moment, and they are working hard on it to ensure that all the films um, would be shown. This film in particular will be shown in all the territories of the world, and we are soon to expect release dates from all over, as to whether there's a cinema near you that will be showing it. So this is one of the posters of the Shaolin Soccer. I think this has to do with the main character. This, I might be mistaken, pardon me, I'm not so familiar with the actors in this, but this film stars, let me bring it up. Yeah, so the cast is headed by Jean Chayofe. Pardon me if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. Hi, Mom, who starred in Hi, Mom as the team's captain. So I think this might be she might be the one. And we also have Diraba Dil Murat as its star striker and Lei Zhan as the Kung Fu coach. And guest appearances include Hong Kong screen icon Karina Lau, Japanese star Takeru Sako, is this yeah Sato, and US comedian Jimmy O Yang. So it boasts quite a number of powerful stars for that matter with regards to this film. And honestly, I can't wait to have it come to a cinema near me so that I can go and take a look as to what Stephen Chow has to offer. One thing I know for sure that is going to be very entertaining with some very expert martial arts skills displayed on the screen as well. So let me know what you think about this film. If you've watched it already, what can you share your experience with that? That is, if you are in China and the film already, what's your thought about it? As a matter of fact, if you go to is it Maoyan, also a Chinese site, the rating given it is around 9.8 out of 10. That is the, I don't know whether that's the critic rating or the audience rating, but the general rating given it already is very high, almost in the 100th percentile. So it speaks of how much people really like this film, and it is indeed making an impact beyond measure. And I can even I'm sure audiences from all over the world are expectant and waiting eagerly to watch this film. And I myself I can't wait to participate in that community of people who would want to go and watch it and have fun with Stephen Chow's film. So let me know what you think. Do you think this indeed will live up to the excitement and level found in the Shaolin Soccer, which happens to be, in a way, a prequel to this? Whatever your thoughts may be, can you leave it in the comment section and let me know? And if you would watch it, leave that comments as well in that section. And before we wrap up this today's presentation, definitely we came over from the weekend not too long ago, and the box office is indeed something that we want to always talk about. Some exciting developments actually as to how the box office have been in this over the weekend. And going to the box office mojo, we quickly delve into the stories that are performing well on the box office front. Maybe today we just take the top five. As you can see, I'll leave the link of this website in the description so that you can check out the top five films or all the films that you want to know about how well they are performing on the box office. But for the very first one, the live action adaptation of Moana open to over $43 million, a little bit lower than the expectation, the projections that it made, and dropping from number one to number two is Minions and Monsters, which made $21 million to a total domestic, that is the North American box office. So the numbers displayed here are of the North American box office. So it has already made over $100 million. Toy Story 2, Toy Story 5, sorry, has dropped from 2 and has made 90 million, but a domestic cum of over 400 million. We also have Evil Dead Burn opening the very first day in its first weekend. This very first weekend for it's made over $13 million, and Young Washington dropping from number 3 has made over 6 million with a total domestic of 33,560,379. So the rest are still there for you to check it out if you want to. So let's move on to the global box office and check which films are performing on that front. And going to the total box office, we have Super Mario Galaxy movie has made over 1 billion, and same as Michael becoming the highest grossing biopic ever, surpassing that of Oppenheimer. And not just that, but in terms of musical biopic as well, it has surpassed the Bohemian Rhapsody, and it indeed has broken a number of records beyond people's expectation. Perhaps people expected it because um, some of the question I'm asking myself, maybe I may treat it as a topic as well, is whether was the success of Michael, was it because of how good a film is, or whether it's because of Michael as a superstar when he was alive, and even still quite a superstar in terms of how his music is still making an impact on the people's lives. So we'll talk about that later. Toy Story 5 is still in the lead with over $879 million. Pardon me. The Devil Wears Prada 2 has made $688 million, over $688 million, with Project Hail Mary following closely behind with 683,761,803. We have Pegasus 3, which has made 656,459,523. Obsession making 426 million 716,765 million, and still may even make more than this amount. Hopeless is still has occupies the number 8 spot with 372,124, sorry, 372 billion and $124,526. Backrooms number 9 with 363,536,924. And Backrooms, Backrooms is quite exceptional. This film was made of a budget of $10 million, and this is the amount it has made. That is quite an awesome, awesome box office win for this film. And last but not least, on the 10 top list that I'm mentioning, but there's still more that you can check it out, as I will leave the link in the description below, is Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Grogu, rounding up the top 10 with $340,417,408. So there you have it, the top 10 films in the global box office. And this wraps up today's presentation of the Film Mandate. I hope you enjoyed the stories for the day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe and share so that others will join in our love for film as we discuss it daily. My name is Papa Otu, and this has been the Film Mandate. I'll see you soon.